threatens to take us to a uncontrollable heating or warming. However, it is possible to regulate the human activity in these forests. It is a major responsibility that should be taken and shared by everyone. We know the main causes of deforestation, the expansion of agriculture and cattle raising, many times incentivized by a strong international demand that would be responsible for 1/3 of the world deforestation. That's why this Amsterdam Partnership was created, to defend a conscious trade that respects the development of all countries, but that guarantee and we avoid irreversible damage to our planet. This partnership now has a new 9 members: Germany, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, France, Italy, Norway, Low Countries, and the United Kingdom. The approach of the partnership is concrete and pragmatic, with focus in the productive chains, specific productive chains, the palm oil, and organizes dialogues with the interested parties to identify weaknesses and seek for solutions. Because what we want is not to stop the trade, but to build together a free trade, a trade free of deforestation. For COP26, 141 countries, including Brazil, and all members of the Amsterdam Partnership, committed to detain and revert this deforestation until 2030. This consideration of deforestation is not demanded by governments, but also by our societies, concerned about the impact over the country or over the planet. The consumers, producers, investors, they want to know the origin of the product, as well as its social and environmental footprint. In Brazil, 60 million hectares of forest coverage had been lost only in the last 2 decades, representing 7% of the national territory. With a dramatic increase of deforestation this year, it has not been seen in Brazil for about 13 years, and with the deepening of the climate crisis, which affects the lives of everyone, it is essential and urgent to work in the impacts of productions and in the investments. The good news is we are starting from ground. For years, public and private actors committed to improve their practices. Today and tomorrow, we will listen banks, investors, and companies from Brazil and from Europe who implemented methodologies to eliminate deforestation in their value chain. And I thank you very much for your participation. By protecting the forest, you, as actors of the private initiative, are protecting your sectors, and not only in our collective interests. We know there are many obstacles, but our guests will show you that there are solutions that are being opened, new ways that can be amplified, and that with goodwill and cooperation, we can face this challenge. As we say in Brazil, soft water in hard rock beats so much until it melts, till it breaks down. So I wish you, our spectators, an excellent webinar. Now it is with you, Fernanda. Merci, madame.
And now let's hear a message from Brazil's Vice President and the President of the Amazon Council, Mr. Hamilton Mourão. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Sustainability is the main challenge of our times. It represents an unpostponable commitment to the protection of the planet and the ensurement of life for the future generations. Science has made it obvious that there is no alternative unless for us to face the challenges posed by climate change, an objective that cannot be reached without broad dialogue and cooperation between all countries and productive sectors of the world. The adoption of sustainability standards is not a choice, but a new ethics that must guide the diverse activities of life in society. This perception that used to be quite restricted to the scientific scope is now becoming increasingly present in the lives of the citizens, and its influence is increasingly evident in the choices for investments and consumption. In a globalized world where sustainability is converted into the new language of economy, there is no more room for countries and companies that do not take into account the impact of their policies on society and the planet. We call this relationship between economic growth and social environmental balance, we call it sustainable development. The need to promote the development, sustainable development, will imply in deep changes in our lifestyles. It will transform the systems of production of assets, international trade, labor, and consumption habits, as happened during the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century and the digital revolution that has been happening along the past decades. In this new context that is neighboring us, the global chains of value have a central place. They are responsible for around 60% of the global trade and the benefits of trade overall for the developing countries. Still, they are related to a large proportion of the emission of greenhouse effect causing gases. The structuring and administering of value chains that have sustainability as a dynamic axis constitute an imperative of the economic order of the 21st century. Besides the positive effects for the planet, the sustainable value chains serve the purpose of the productive actors being able to relate to each other dynamically and in a transparent manner between governments, market, and society. We must emphasize that the construction of those value chains that englobe social, economic, and environmental values and aspects and all of its changes or their changes depend on technological and financial investments to minimize the differences between countries in terms of technical capacity and infrastructure. The challenge of sustainability cannot be overcome without the financial support of initiatives aiming to the promotion of sustainable development. Another risk that we must pay attention to, and that seems to have gotten worse due to the COVID-19 crisis, is protectionism in all of its forms, especially those that have been revealed as environmentally concerned factors. This compromises the productive chains all over the world, and we need incentives for countries to be able to join this channel. Trade and economic integration are the most effective manners to uniform the standards of sustainability. The agreement of association between Mercosur and the European Union is a landmark in this sense, establishing norms that make member parties committed to environmental standards and governance standards. Brazil is important as a protagonist in the search for solutions for sustainability. We are the most mega diverse country of the world, concentrating about 15 to 20% of the world's biodiversity. Brazil is equally an a, a country that must be a part of the discussion on food security with a straight relation with the promotion of of sustainable development, and we are also committed to international efforts against climate change, as it has become clear in our participation in COP26, when we undertook ambitious goals to reach carbon neutrality and eliminate illegal deforestation. However, Brazil, with all the large economies of the world, as all of these countries, shows vulnerable spots regarding carbon emissions. The grave problem of legal deforestation in the Amazon is not just a result of one government, but it is a result of policies along history that approached forests as an obstacle to human progress and economic development. The government and the main political actors and economic actors of the country know that it is not possible to tolerate the predatory action on this inestimably valuable asset of the Brazilian people. So we aim to increase monitoring and inspection and punishment of illegal activity in the Amazon. But we also want to protect the last wild border of the world. But this cannot be successful without sustainable development being developed in the region. The Amazon needs to be inserted in sustainable value chains. And for this, we need partnerships between the public and private sectors focused on the use of the region's potential for bioeconomy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very proud and happy to receive the invitation of the French ambassador to participate in this event that evokes a theme of the greatest relevance for us to be successful in this objective that unites all of us, the construction of a sustainable world for our children and grandchildren. And I wish you all a successful debate, and that this will serve to broaden and enrich everyone's vision on this theme. My deep thanks and a hug to every one of you. Thank you, Vice President Hamilton Mourão. The webinar Forest and Business will be divided in 2 dates, today and tomorrow. On each day, we will have different themes. Today, we will discuss best practices to ensure production chains without deforestation. Tomorrow, we will talk about sustainable development. You also can participate sending us your questions through the YouTube chat. And today, we have the pleasure to receive Mr. Henrique Lawson Gomes da Silva, the Coordinator of Sustainability of Klabin. Silvestre Awono, the Global Director of the Cacao Product with Puratos. Fernando Carelli, the Director of Corporative Subjects for Latin America, for South America with América Ferrero. Paulo Vianez, the Director of Sustainability of Marfrig. Edna Youssef Bakken, the General Director of BVT. Patrick Sabatier, Director of Institutional Relations and Communication of L'Oréal. This is a Soma Rosa with Unilever, and our first guest is the Coordinator of Sustainability of Klabin, Mr. Henrique Lawson Gomes da Silva. Klabin is the largest producer and exporter of paper in Brazil. Good morning, Henrique. Do you hear us? Yes, I do. Good morning, everybody. Henrique, I would like to know what are the main challenges in this field and how Klabin is dealing with this. Today, the sector of paper and cellulose is a sector that contributes to avoid deforestation. It is mainly guided by forest certification to ensure that our forests, our planted forests of pinus and eucalyptus mainly, do not contribute to deforestation. This certification is the UFSC. It is an international certification that is used by the largest companies in the sector, and it provides extra security to our clients so that they will know that timber was produced and managed in a sustainable manner. I think this is a great tool that we have in this sector that shows our commitment, in fact, with non-deforestation. And this certification is not only applicable to us who plant forests of paper and cellulose, it also serves to our partners who sell us the timber. This certification is also applied to them, so as to ensure us that the timber being bought is also produced sustainably with a management that respects social and environmental issues. Today at Klabin, so that you know, we have a little over 500,000 hectares of forests, and 43% of this large portion of land is native protected areas for maintenance and protection of biodiversity. So I believe this is a highlight, not only for Klabin, but the entire sector of paper and cellulose that ensures a policy against deforestation. This certification helps us to be 100% sure that we are not causing deforestation, because this kind of land cannot be certified. If timber comes from land that is not certified, we do not buy it, so that this does not compromise the products that we sell. Regarding small farmers, we have programs for them where we help them to also reach this IFFC certification to ensure their production chain, so that they have fair labor in their properties and they produce certified timber where they do not cause deforestation, and we pay a higher price for this timber because it has added value. So within the time that you have given me, I think this is the most important point that I should highlight for you regarding non-deforestation in the sector of paper and cellulose. Henrique did, so Klabin participated in COP26. Why? What was your purpose in participating in this meeting in Glasgow? Today, Klabin participates in the COP26 business leaders, though this is a group of 10 companies in Latin America that were selected to promote techniques for low carbon emission. This is one of the reasons we are there, besides the commitment and the visibility Klabin has had regarding the sustainability and non-deforestation practices. This is the reason we are there. We want to be influencers so that companies in all Latin America and all over the world can also contribute to avoid climate change, to stop climate change. Thank you very much for participating in our seminar. A good morning to you. Good morning to you too. Thank you very much. And now let's talk about chocolate. Mr. Sylvester Kawono is the global director of Puratos, cacao producing company, which is an iconic product. Chocolate is an iconic product from Belgium, but also cacao plantations have promoted deforestation all over the world. So Sylvester is participating in our webinar in English and will be translated to Portuguese. The selection of the idiom can be done in the YouTube settings. É bom tê-lo com o senhor, senhora, tê-lo conosco, senhora Wano, bom dia. Senhor Awano, você poderia nos falar sobre os desafios que o senhor tem encontrado e os métodos que o senhor tem utilizado para superar esses desafios?
Hello, Fernanda. Do you hear me?
Vocês me ouvem? Sim, ouvimos.
Okay. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk
Obrigada por
about
me darem a oportunidade de falar
deforestation-free chocolate.
sobre o desmatamento, sobre o chocolate livre de
Of
desmatamento.
course, deforestation-free
Claro
chocolate is
que
possible.
o chocolate livre de desmatamento
And let
é
me
possível
introduce
e
you
deixe-me mostrar a vocês
with Cacao Trace, the Puratos Sustainability Program,
Então,
the
aqui temos
journey
nosso
of
programa de
Cacao Trace,
sustentabilidade.
deforestation-free chocolate. Cacao Trace is
Então, o
a
cacau
certification. It is
precisa de
a unique
certificação.
sustainability program that
E nós temos um
aims at
programa que é
addressing
voltado para
effectively the cocoa chain issues
lidar com as
that
questões
are
do
poverty, deforestation, child labor. The way we address these issues is by creating value, tangible value people can recognize and for which they will be paying more to acquire. And then we'll share the value resulting from the value creation among all stakeholders, and especially cocoa farmers. And then we have a commitment toward 4 key stakeholders. A commitment, allow me here to only highlight the commitment toward farmers, that is improving farmers' living conditions through revenue increase and community development. And then, second, the commitment towards planet, that is a commitment for forest preservation and with forest restoration. In forest preservation, it's about no sourcing from protected area. And regarding forest restoration, we have a commitment of planting 1.5 million trees by 2025, 3.5 million trees by 2030. So let's come to our journey to deforestation-free chocolate. Our journey started with looking at the root cause of deforestation. That came 3 points: increasing demand for chocolate. We know that chocolate demand is increasing year after year. The low productivity of farms. And then we have farmers' poverty. We know that farmers' poverty results in cutting more trees in order to have land to grow a bit more and to have more money. We then work on those, and we came with using some tools and results. Our aim in Cacao Trace is really making sure that we decrease, that we mitigate the deforestation in cocoa, and we then address the root cause and challenging here. We have here as first tools good agricultural practices in order to address the cocoa supply. And then we also have the quality premium that we pay to farmers and the chocolate bonus that comes on top of quality premium. As you can see here, the result of those actions, you can see that in good agricultural practices, we increase the productivity from 350 on average kilogram per hectare to almost 600 kilogram per hectare within our program. We can also see that we have increased the revenue of farmers from 2 to 5 months additional revenue depending from the country. We know that those results have a direct impact in addressing the deforestation in cocoa. That's not all. We also work in forest restoration, where we included agroforestry program within our program, and you can see that we are now, it's only the beginning, more than 100,000 trees planted today. I will then end by saying, what about traceability and tools? Of course, we know deforestation-free chocolate chains require adequate forms of cocoa traceability. And we also know that effective and trustworthy traceability is essential to establish an ecosystem that replaces deforested cocoa. But we also, here for this, we apply several tools that are available in traceability. We have corporate tools, independent tools. I won't just give the name here, but the challenge here is really applying properly and implementing properly and sustaining the cost of deforestation. Then we believe that funding sustainability in the cocoa value chain should not be diverted to traceability mechanism only. This is why we are concentrating our effort, and we believe that here all the stakeholders have to play their role in, and we have a commitment here on that perspective through the Beyond Chocolate, partnership, and all the other partnerships that are regarding cocoa for France, Frisco, Disco in Dutch, and Gisco in Germany, and Frisco in Switzerland. That was my point for the time you gave me to talk about deforestation. I will summarize saying deforestation-free chocolate is possible. We have to address this by addressing the root cause, and one of the most important is farmers' poverty, and that we are addressing within our Cacao Trace program here. Thank you.
Mr. Awono, you talked about Africa. Are you planning to introduce in Latin America?
Thank you for the question, Fernanda. Today, Cacao Trace is present in Africa. That's correct. We are present in 7 countries today, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Cameroon, in Uganda, but also in Philippines, in Vietnam, in Papua New Guinea. Yes, what about Latin America? We are present in Mexico today, and we are today planning to start a Cacao Trace program in some countries in Latin America, like Peru, like Costa Rica, and Brazil, of course.
Well, thank you. We look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. E vamos continuar nessa seara.
Well, let's keep in this sweetness of chocolate and responsible products. Participate sending a question through our chat on YouTube. And we now will receive to talk about the responsible chain, the Latin America director of Ferrero Group, Mr. Fernando Carelli. Ferrero, after being criticized because part of what they purchased to use in their production came from deforested areas, actually did a very good job of traceability, which led them to get an award from WWF. We have now Fernando. Good morning, Fernando. Good morning. Can you tell us how is this process that the company went through, and how do you do to guarantee that what you purchase does not contribute for deforestation no longer? Well, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to tell a little bit about the trajectory of Ferrero. It is always a pleasure. Well, I'll start telling our audience that Ferrero Group has a very clear mission. We care for the better. We care for the better. And it means to care for the better of people, of our consumers, our societies, our economies, and undoubtedly for the best of the planet. And our proposal is influenced by an approach, a long-time approach of sustainability. Indeed, sustainability, or the sustainable way to work, is our way of doing business. Ferrero is a family-owned company of very solid values, and one of the values that follow us since our foundation is this commitment with sustainability. And the most important, we walk the talk. At Ferrero, more important than having global commitments is to deliver these commitments. So since 2015, 100% of a palm oil that we use in our products is certified in the highest standard of RSPO. We were recognized by WWF on palm oil scorecard as the best ranked manufacturer in the world about the sustainability of this chain. The cocoa we use in our products also is 100% sustainable, as well as 100% of the sugar from sugarcane that we use is also controlled and sustainable. That is, we have a lot of evidences that we deliver what we committed to deliver. And how do we do it? Well, the first difference is that we don't understand our value chain as a simply supplier of raw matter, raw products. We have a real understanding that the generation of added value in our business also goes through generating value in the whole value chain. Obviously, that after this, after knowing deeply our value chains, it is fundamental to apply the due diligence and to guarantee that the solutions we will propose for these chains are proper to the particularities of each one of the regions where our raw products are originated. We also have technology to improve the visibility and to accelerate the correction actions. So today, for us to be able to have effective deliveries of sustainable chains, controlled chains, we have all our producing farms being monitored by satellite with geolocation through GPS, which gives us a lot of safety to be able to state that these suppliers are committed to a sustainable production and they are aligned to the values of the Ferrero Group. And we also work with partners to understand the causes of the problems and the structural challenges, especially in chains that need to develop to increase their scale, such as the cocoa supplier chains. As my friend from the sector mentioned, we have growing demands in the sector, and obviously this will reflect in all our supply chain. But even though we are more and more structured in the way as we supply our ingredients, some of the challenges we need to solve are obviously beyond our reach. And that's why we understand that a supply chain without deforestation needs systemic solutions conducted by public policies. We see as a major promise our wave of legislation on this topic. For example, the proposal of the European Union, the framework of the European Union about deforestation. But obviously, these measures need to be followed by the initiatives in the producing countries. And we see with very good eyes the effort of the Brazilian government to eliminate deforestation until 2030, as it was said in the last COP. We at Ferrero are very happy to support the building and protagonist role that Brazil can have in this topic, as said by our Vice President, Hamilton Mourão. This is it on our part. Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. We have a participation on the chat. If you are watching us and want to ask a question, please use it, do it through the chat. The question is there any intersection between forests, business, and indigenous communities? Do you notice any of these in the scope of Ferrero Group? Yes, we do. Obviously, that where the production is related to indigenous communities, the business and the production need to be done in a sustainable way, in a responsible way. And there is a series of success cases that show that it is possible to do this match, not only in our chains, which are already 100% controlled and sustainable, but there are several cases of partners who today show that it is feasible to gather the interest of the distinctive stakeholders and the community's presence, preserving the lands where they are located. This is a very important topic for us. Cool. Thank you very much, Fernando. Now, we go to the cattle raising business. We're going to talk to Paulo Bianes, Director of Sustainability at Marfrig. I thank Paulo's participation. Marfrig, after being criticized by selling meat from deforested areas, took a series of important commitments. I'd like to know, can you explain us how these commitments are being implemented and what are the results so far? Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be able to talk to you. we have a monumental challenge within the agribusiness as a whole, more specifically in the cattle raising sector. But before we talk about cattle raising itself, it is important that we have in mind that the understanding of what the sector is and how it is developed, or how it has been developing in the country, is absolutely paramount. For you to have an idea, cattle raising today represents about 10% of our GDP in Brazil. And while the agri sector, it is the largest one we've ever had. And we're talking about 190 billion million cattle animals. We're talking about 142 million slaughters that happen every day. And in the farms that we have, about 2.5 million dedicate to the cattle raising. That is an enormous amount of producers who dedicate to this segment of our economy. Besides that, cattle raising is characterizes by being decentralized. That is, it has producers who dedicate to a certain stage of the production, the one that produce calves, and there are others who are going to be preparing the animal for their life cycle, and there is the finishing stage, which are made by different producers. It makes a decentralization, a pulverization that is very significant along the production in the Brazilian continent. Not only that, but there is another aspect that is very important. That is, cattle raising in Brazil characterizes also by having a major amount of small producers. About 75% of the producers have less than 100 hectares, and also 83%, these are data from the agribusiness census of 2007, dedicate to agriculture, and in this case, family cattle raising. It means that we have to understand this context and how it is distributed in the country so that we can create effective solutions. These solutions go through the role of the companies, and in the case, the role of Marfrig, which understands that it is feasible to conciliate cattle raising with conservation, but it also goes through public policies, and this is paramount. It is from the content, this cluster of these two products that Marfrig launched in 2020, after understanding what is possible on the point of view of guaranteeing production chains in cattle raising free of deforestation. We created Marfrig Verde Mais. This is structured in 3 pillars. The first pillar is the construction of financial innovative mechanisms to fund this producer, especially the small producer who does not have access to the formal credit market. The second pillar, which is very much based on new technologies and technical assistance, and there is no way to talk about sustainable production in large scale without having the application of technology, improvement of the genetics of the cattle, integration, crops, forest, so that we are able to take technology, to bring technology for it to be more productive, and be more productive, it will be more sustainable, and it will not need new areas to produce. And last but not least, to trace and monitor this production. When we talk about supply, just to give an idea, Marfrig has only in the Amazon about 16,000 suppliers. From these 16,000 suppliers, about 10 of them are indirect. It means to say that we have about 176,000 suppliers only in the Amazon. So it is paramount for us to get not only technology for this to be controlled, but also it is fundamental that we can map and take technology, take technical assistance to all of these producers, because that's the way we believe that effectively we can make the cattle raising production in Brazil is totally free of deforestation. This is done with financial resources, it is done with technology, with control and engagement, within the assumption that inclusion and not exclusion as something that happened in the last 10 or 12 years. You can, you can't. What we want is to understand why we can't and what we can do so this producer has the assistance he needs and is part of the chain of supplies at Marfrig. This is it, Fernanda, basically. So do you believe that these commitments taken by Marfrig has a positive effect, such as a snowball in all of this chain production in Brazil, incentivizing other producers, especially the small ones? Yes, no doubt about this. From the moment that we launched this program, it was totally innovative in the way it was conceived. It made the sector, the chain, to come in the same way. We see our competitors and our peers in the segment doing the same. That is, it is a complete and radical change in the approach that was being done until then. We understand that with this, we're able to make a movement in the financial sector. The credit concession sector needs to develop mechanisms to serve this specific need of the small producer. Without resources, there is no technology, and without technology, it's very difficult to conciliate production and production. And on the other point, it is fundamental to be able to influence the public power, to create public policies that also come in this context, as much as it leverages a new thinking in the academia, in the research institutes, in the civil society in general, so that we're able to do a whole movement in the agribusiness, and that applies in the production of any good in Brazil. So we are very sure that this is the way to go, and we believe that without a doubt we will be able to make that the commitments of Marfrig can be extended to the segment as a whole of the cattle raising business. Paulo, with regards to your foreign clients, do you believe that the increase of deforestation in the Amazon could hide some of these efforts to trace the cattle purchased from this region? Oh, no doubt about this. In fact, this is a sector that is under permanent scrutiny from investors and clients. Marfrig exports to more than 100 countries. It is the second largest company in the world. It is the first in hamburger production. But this is present constantly in our guidelines. But we see very positively all this movement that happens out there, so that we have this pressure. Because what we've been doing here can be replicated and adopted as a practice in the whole sector. So of course that we see in a very near future, this is all happening. And those who are not able to show clearly what they are doing, those who are not able to show through a traceable chain that is free of deforestation and low carbon, which is very important too, will not have any place on the market.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paulo, for your participation. Thank you for inviting me. And now we'll talk about the soy, whose value chain is often related to deforestation. If anyone participating in the seminar has any questions, please send the questions on our YouTube chat. The questions that are not answered during this morning will be answered later by our guests. Now, Mr. Herman Josef Bakken, the director of DVT, a large German buyer of Brazilian soy. He is going to speak to us in English.
Could you please tell us how your company ensures that its purchases do not lead to deforestation?
Yeah, I think you can hear me. So I will clearly make a point. I will clearly make a point and say deforestation-free sustainable value chains are a very important topic for us in Germany, and I will present you a part of the roadmap for implementation and feasibility, especially in the feasibility. And I can tell you that our activities are running since a lot of years, and in 2019, our president, Mr. Jan Lade, calls the German feed companies to make a voluntary commitment to use sustainable soy. And the basis for this sustainable sourcing is provided by the FIFAC soy sourcing guidelines from 2015. FIFAC is the European Feed Compound Association. And in response, many companies have voluntarily committed to using sustainable soy, with finally 100% into implementation in 25 latest. And you again find with this link the number of the companies who have already signed this voluntary commitment. In addition to that, we engaged in the National Forum for Sustainable Protein Food and other group and multi-stakeholder initiatives to jointly define goals in close cooperation with other supply chain partners, because it's very important to find also partners and in line with their goals. Influenced by the discussion about climate crisis and deforestation and land use change, raw material sourcing strategy has changed for the compound feed producers over the last few days. And in addition to that, also the national protein strategy has been integrated into consideration on the strategic orientation of the German feed industry, and that means more use of national protein sources if possible. And in addition to that, last but not least, we try to improve the transparency of the existing protein sources in feed and their origin through a European and German protein balance sheet, because we need definitely the protein, where they have a lot of protein imported, definitely to fulfill the expectations here in Germany. And that is the result for 2020. If you see the raw material import in 2020, these are around about 3.9 million tons soya beans and 2.8 million tons soybean meal. And as well is used for compound feed. 2.4 million tons of soybean are used and produced to the 24 million. That means 10% of the compound feed is soybean, and 60 to 70% of the soy is used certified as sustainable. And in addition to that, we have achieved that approximately 2/3 of the soy used comes from areas with a low risk of deforestation. The FIFAC soy sourcing guidelines in 2021 were revised and published in spring 21. In addition to the criterion, we have now the criterion of land use change, which means land use change is including no deforestation, including the chain of custody solutions, book and claim, mass balance, segregation, and hard IP. And so now the criterion in these guidelines is no soy is produced in converted national ecosystems. That means natural forests, native grasslands, wetlands, swamps, peatlands, savannas, steep slopes, and riparian areas after a specific cut-off date no later than 2020. And we added also a new qualification mechanism and transparency tool for increased traceability and market transparency. So in the meantime, 15 certification programs has been registered, all offering the no conversion module, and we are expecting more. For the last guidelines, we have 19. And in Germany, we have a clear intention to achieve a quick transformation for the total livestock sector, requested by retailers with unified criteria via an additional module in the existing quality management system. That means that we are working with our German system from optional to mandatory with a unified module. But let me finish my presentation with a short message to the new EU regulation. Is that feasible for the industry? And the new regulation is concerning certain commodities and products associated with deforestation and forest degradation, which means that we have to ensure the physical segregation of raw material flows, and that means separate logistic and this is currently not feasible from a technical and a practical point of view. We have, and that is a reason for that, a very complex logistics in this area for feed, and you have to accept, and we have all to accept, and also the politicians have to accept that we have a very broad logistic coming from a lot of farms, as already mentioned, going through the mills and then coming back to a lot of feed companies, for example, in Europe, and then goes to the farmers, which are a lot of thousand farmers, and that is very difficult to make the physical segregation. And that means if we have the risk classification, and this is a second point, of producing countries, that means that we have to discontinue the trade with customers with high risk areas and discriminate against sustainable producers in high risk countries, which should not be the target, because our aim is to achieve that we have more sustainable soil from these countries, and not to separate the countries with higher risk, but to find solution for that. And it is the right solution that we work with a declaration to find exactly the sustainable soil over the logistics for our companies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. Becken, you point out that the aiming of eradicating deforestation from the soy value chain places a great burden on companies, which will face additional logistical costs. Do policies conceived in this area need to include financial support for the private sector?
I think we wouldn't have to have financial support in this sector. We would to find a solution which is acceptable for the whole value chain. And so our idea is, and our target is, to go step by step from the now existing system into a new system, which is clearly with more traceability, but we need for that some more time, and I'm sure we will find a solution to move into a direction of 100% deforestation free.
Much of this work of tracing soy has been done through multi-stakeholder working groups and roundtables. And I would like to ask, is this method effective?
Yes, I mean the only way to find the right solutions is to work together in a multi-stakeholder platform, to find a solution where all the participants are going into the same direction and accept the relevant issues of the different part of the value chain.
Well, thank you, Dr. Becken. Uma outra cadeia de valor ligada à floresta.
Another value chain linked to the forest is cosmetics. Mr. Patrick Sabatier, Director of Institutional Relations of L'Oréal in Brazil, is going to talk to us about the measures taken by the company to ensure that the inputs are not provenient from deforested areas. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Fernanda. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank you for your invitation. Thank you, Ms. Brigitte Collet, the Ambassador of France, for inviting me. And here I am representing L'Oréal. L'Oréal has been present in Brazil for over 60 years. And I could also represent the trade chamber, Brazil-France Trade Chamber, or the Council of the Association of Hygiene and Cosmetics, Association of Producers in Brazil. So we in our group, we include large national and multinational companies present in Brazil and engaged in this journey towards sustainability and zero deforestation. So along with L'Oréal, we have in part of L'Oréal is accelerating its fight of sustainable development and aiming to reach zero deforestation. And as a world leader in the field of cosmetics and beauty, we are committed to take on leadership, social, environmental, and ethical leadership. We are known for our CDP Zero Carbon Project, AAA. We have been regarded as AAA for 5 consecutive years. We are the only company in the world who reached this. For our measures against climate change, our sustainable use of water, and forest conservation. Besides, we bring to you sustainable innovation in the heart of our companies. We aim to source 50% natural products in our formulas. 100% of our packages are FFC or PFC certified, and we, in terms of merchandising, also produce 100% of our products as eco-design and EFC certified. Our group is committed to zero deforestation, and we published this in our policies in 2014 in this regard, so that no ingredient or raw materials used in the products produced by us can be related to deforestation after 2020. In the new program, L'Oréal for the Future, the sustainable program of our group launched in 2020, we committed to maintain by 2030 the necessary occupation and correct occupation of land to source our products. And now I could give you a few examples. Paper, for example, we source paper. Example of raw materials bought from Brazil. 100% of the paper bought that we buy from Brazil is FC or PFC certified. Another example, we talked about soy. 98% of the soy oil used by L'Oréal comes from Latin America, Brazil and Paraguay. This oil is certified by the Round Table for Sustainable Soy. The products are organic, traceable, and ensure zero deforestation. And we have projects for solidarity sourcing, solidarity and sustainable sourcing that contributes to reduce deforestation and value standing forests. Through this measure, we value local biodiversity, we benefit local extractive communities through fair trade, creating sustainable trade chains with a positive environmental impact. There is a synergy of these actions with the Brazilian biodiversity laws, including sharing of benefits. So the babaçu, a Brazilian palm tree, we buy the oil, the organic oil and nuts from 9 rural traditional communities in the state of Maranhão. We are going to move forward towards sustainable transformation and to fight climate change, protecting and regenerating natural ecosystems that have been degraded. We have announced 50 million euro in investments. And within these investments, we will have projects in Brazil for the regeneration of the Amazon, the home of global biodiversity. And to finish, our purpose is to create beauty that moves the world, beauty based on green science, beauty that is more inclusive and respectful of the limits of our planet. Thank you very much, Fernanda, for your invitation. Okay, I have a couple of questions to you. L'Oréal is engaged since 2007 in the identification of deforestation risks in its supply chain. What are the main difficulties here in Brazil to source these products, deforestation-free products in Brazil?
Well, this is not possible to differentiate this in Brazil and in the world. It is a long journey. Today, I can say that we have a value chains that are totally sustainable in Brazil. I actually gave a few examples, but once again, we spoke with cocoa-related companies in palm oil, for example, that Indonesia and Malaysia produces, and L'Oreal purchases almost nothing for them. But here, it was also a very long journey for the member of round table and the palm oil, sustainable palm oil, to guarantee this sustainability and zero deforestation status. And this is just to show that the engagement of a company through the world and the difference in policies, that there is no difference in policies, and it is a no way back journey that advances very much in Brazil and in other parts of the world. The sale of this free deforestation product is seen as an advantage or strategic advantage for the company, or is it just something important to be done? Well, I think that today, I would like to say there is no talk, there is no stakeholder, because this is not absolutely fundamental. There was a dialogue with authorities, with NGOs, to recruit young talent. There is no other option. If you want to conquer the consumers of today and tomorrow, the millennial generation, we're talking about the purpose or the reason for L'Oréal. I think it is fundamental. But if you see at all consumers, young talents you're going to recruit, clients, supplier, authorities, NGOs, and also the financial compensation or valuing of the company, it is a no way back journey. This is a very strong group. It is one of the pillars of development of our group. And for us, sustainability is at the heart of our activity. Nice. It is indeed a no way back journey. Thank you, Monsieur Sabati. Well, in this webinar, we talked about many specific value chains: cocoa, cattle, and palm oil. Now, I would like to invite Mrs. Suelma Rosa, Director of Sustainability of the British company Unilever, whose products are beverages, food products, and hygiene and beauty products. And some of the chains are potentially connected to the forest. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Fernanda. Good morning, everyone. Please tell us how Unilever works to avoid that its activities contribute for the deforestation. Well, I think it is important to notice that Unilever has as a mission to be the world leader in sustainable products. When you launch a sustainable at this level, to treat of all impact of our actions in different categories and types of action is the center of our business. Unilever in 2020, after being a pioneer in sustainability plans in 2010, and to have reached and over and surpassed many goals. We call it compass because it is our compass. And in this 10-year journeys of implementation, we actually had a big learning. This learning was that it is not possible to have a business strategy and a sustainability strategy. We have to integrate it, and Compass is our business strategy, which incorporates three of the main pillars of sustainability: to improve the health of the planet, to improve the health and the well-being of people, and to contribute for a socially inclusive world. This combination actually results in what are our specific goals for deforestation. We have one goal that we'll reach now in 2023, which is to have all our supply chain free of deforestation. And we're not talking about only Brazil, we're talking about globe, about the world. Naturally, the objective of this talk of today is a challenge that has to do with the whole governance of Unilever and all the internal efforts that we have done to seek better supply chains and more sustainable partners, and also to stimulate that the value chain is capable to to answer all the challenges of deforestation. Now, what have we done to answer your question? Well, first, we have to adopt a hefty model of traceability. There is no free deforestation in the supply chain if we don't have visibility and transparency regarding where these products come and where do they go through. All the inputs, reminding that Unilever is a company that works in several business categories. The second is to guarantee monitoring, checking, and reports in a consistent system, in coherent system that can give visibility to this. The other one is to guarantee accountability, because all parts involved have to have their share of responsibility, not only environmental responsibility, because free deforestation has to do with social impact, considering that an important part of these biomes that are part of these supply chains also are biomes where the human development is lesser, but especially to have a partnership relationship with the supply chain, because it demands also a major dose of innovation in a way of management, innovation in monitoring, and also innovation in the classic concept, and open innovation. So we believe that it is actually necessary. And maybe last, it is to have a solid due diligence system. This due diligence brings information about the origin and the route of each one of these inputs, but how this value chain behaves in terms of human right protection, since we brought this social aspect to this slide in this agenda of deforestation. I think it's important to understand that Unilever does not intend to only mitigate. Our objective is to be the world leader in sustainable business. So we're taking fast steps, or faster than those in the legal context or regulatory, national regulatory context. Unilever has committed to have a chain free of supply until 2023. What are the challenges for the next 12 months? Well, the greatest one is volume, because we have, since this goal has been fixed and sold and built from our previous plan before Compass, we were there enough to place this goal, thinking about the challenges of global change. In the case of Brazil, we advanced very fast, participating on coalitions with other companies, especially with complete value chains. But the greatest challenge is to make our supply chain and our suppliers get the necessary scale to meet the demands of our businesses in each one of our inputs. So we have challenges in several business categories, not to take much time to talk about chain by chain. in the Amazon biomes as well as in the Cerrado, in the savannas. So do you also work with NGOs about deforestation, and how is this collaboration? Well, there is no way to talk about this topic without dialoguing with the whole society. I like very much the concept of a conscious capitalism because it considers the company as part of a complex system. And there is no way, it is another way to answer, but there is no way to deal this topic without dialoguing with social movements, without dialoguing with the NGOs, and without dialoguing with influencers and activists, which are maybe not connected to perennial institutions or structures. So yes, we are going beyond that. Besides cooperating and developing joint projects and participating in several coalitions and several initiatives in national and international, we also develop co-creation partnerships with activists, with influencers, and with NGOs, national and international. Thank you very much, Director Suelma Rosa. The first part of the webinar, our webinar finished here, but tomorrow we have some more. In behalf of the Amsterdam Partnership, I thank all participants, the panelists, and our YouTube audience. We heard today, we saw good practices, examples, and success stories that confirm that the trade free of deforestation is possible. So I'll see you tomorrow in the same time, 11 o'clock a.m. in Brazilian time, for the second part of our webinar, which will involve Brazilian and European investors around the topic sustainable investments. We will talk to Bradesco, Santander, JGP, Storebrand, and Nordea, besides the researcher of the Federal University of Minas Gerais. In the heart of the discussions, guarantees for investment, funding, traceability, and innovative instruments. I hope to see you. And this talk of today will keep available here at YouTube. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Muito obrigado a todos. Merci beaucoup à tous. Thank you very much to all the participants.
Obrigado a todos os participantes. It was a pleasure.